40 days and 40 nights, man.
Oh, man. And this time big, Michael Gehlken is in the building.
Right.
Oh, man.
This is how you come back. If you're gonna come back from a hiatus, and you're gonna grind, you come back with the best. You feel me? So that's how you come back. So I appreciate and a big salute to my dog boss Cowboys.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. So, because we've been having a little bit of bad luck sometimes to where it's been technical difficulty, but Mike popped right in.
Right on it.
Sometimes we had technical difficulty.
Ain't no Murphy's Law tonight.
No Murphy's Law. It's time.
It was
That
meant
cousin
to be right
there,
this way. You feel me?
Third
You don't come in after 3 weeks and having some glitches. Thank you, Lord.
And Michael, I'm gonna tell you right now, we already got some film. Your film work from Twitter. We gonna talk about it. We gonna kick it off with you.
Okay.
All right, yeah. So we already got you ready to go. So, all right, we gonna start it off in just a minute. Man, I miss y'all, man. I ain't gonna even lie. I'm not too ashamed to say I miss my brothers, man.
I'm gonna say right now, boss, you called it. I thought it was perfect how you did it. You know what I mean? Taking that little break.
Yeah.
We all got to miss each other, do our own things, and come back like Voltron.
Yeah. I'm just being honest, man. I miss you boys. I miss, doing the final word. I've been like, man, what is life is like if we not doing the final word? I was like, man, but anyway, yeah, we needed that break. All of us, we needed to just kind of take a step back.
What break?
Because we really did take
Oh
breaks.
yeah, you ain't taking no break. I ain't taking no break.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest. I would even add, yeah, definitely no days off. I agree. I would definitely say, listen, because Michael Gehlken and I was in that heat. Yeah, yeah, we was in that heat. So anyway, here we go. Y'all already know. Somebody said third Cowboy show today. Let's go. Oh yeah, man, we in here. All right. I'm excited, man. The final word is back, and we not going nowhere. We go be nonstop all the way into the draft.
Wait a minute.
Into the 2023 draft.
Through the Super Bowl. Where that Kool-Aid at? Where that Kool-Aid at?
What? I got it. Yeah, but I gotta agree.
Yoga fire. Yoga
Flame.
Yoga flame, man. Count it up. All right, man. Y'all throw those flames in the chats, man.
And be sure to check out Michael Gehlken on Twitter.
Oh yeah, we got him. Michael Gehlken. He's in the building. Mr. Michael Gehlken himself. So
VIP.
Absolutely. Let's get it. I see the flames. I love it. I see y'all throwing the flames in the house. Let's go.
Yeah.
I see it. Ow! Man, where my button at? I got a button that's just for me. Huh. All right, so here we go, man. It's been a little while. There it is. All right, so we got Mr. Gehlken in the house as promised. And how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Man,
Great,
good to see you. All right, we're going to turn the music on, and let's go get right to it. So, Michael Gehlken, I want to kind of kick it off because you going to your Twitter page. If y'all not following this Twitter, y'all make sure y'all follow Gehlken at NFL. Because one of the things that you brought out, we going to start with the kind of controversial topic, Mr. Gehlken. We're going to talk about this Micah Parsons rating on Madden and how, in your opinion, they got it a little bit wrong. Can you expound on that?
Well, I guess greatness, in order to earn that label, you have to demonstrate that level of production over time. And that's the only argument that one can make as to why Micah Parsons' rating is so low. I believe by the time that the full ratings for this game is out, that he'll probably be the highest rated second-year player. And so it's kind of on a curve when you've only played one season. So 88 overall, from that sense, is a very high. But I think if you were actually just look at what he did last season, not just his production, which speaks for itself, but the manner in which he did it, there weren't a lot of cheap sacks on the table. Yes, Dan Quinn did a heck of a job, designing some, one-on-one opportunities with him. But I mean, Micah Parsons is different. He's special. He's generational. Mistake that I think you're going to hear, you probably heard a little bit this draft season, is this guy could be the next Micah Parsons. This guy could be like Micah Parsons. We've gone decades of NFL football without having a single Micah Parsons.
Right.
I think people should appreciate how different this guy is. His ability to be who he is as an inside linebacker, then to flex down into a 3-point stance and present the challenges that he does as an edge rusher. He's special. So 88, that's what they'll put on him. It's just a video game. People can buy the video game if they want. They could go to edit ratings. They can jack his speed up to 95. They can bring his overall to whatever they want it to be. And so Micah Parsons, he didn't say anything about it on social media in terms of, I think he did call it disrespectful, but he's still playing the game. I don't think I'm not going to get fired up about it beyond the fact to point out that, he's no 88 by the typical construct.
Big.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just kind of seeing what y'all was going to do, but I'm going to just come out with my questions. I got questions.
Go.
So, I appreciate you jumping on here, number one, but I want to talk about two things. To me, it speaks toward depth, and I want to see, kind of get your thoughts and, pick your brain on this. The linebacker position and the receiver position. Obviously, with the Amari Cooper thing being gone out the lineup. But when I look at the linebacker position and the receiver position, if, God forbid, you have any injury that goes on with a CD Lamb, I wonder about, is there the true depth there? First, at the receiver position, obviously you have CD Lamb, Michael Gallup. You have your draft pick in Jalen Tolbert. But I want to get your thoughts on a couple players. Is it James Washington? Is he a lock this year, in your opinion? And also, we've been hearing a lot about T.J. Vasher. And we've heard about Simi Fehoko. Does TJ Vasher really have a real chance to be on this roster? And if he does make this roster, can we actually see him on a game day, 55-day roster on that aspect?
I think those two positions that you highlighted to me are the 100%. I'm right there with you, where there are questions at both, and focusing now at linebacker, or probably at wide receiver. James Washington, is he a lock for the roster? I would say he's pretty close to one. We haven't really seen him on the field because of a foot injury in the spring. Didn't see him in OTAs, didn't see him at minicamp. So to say that I have a great feel from him based on what I've seen in person, I don't. But from having seen him on tape and after the Cowboys signed him, you take a look at what his skill set is, and he's a lot like Michael Gallup in terms of someone who just stretches the field and can win those 50-50 balls. Really pushes things with that vertical element of his game. And so if you're the Cowboys and you're looking at the potential or likelihood, we'll see exactly how he's progressing, although I'm heard it's encouraging. If Gallup's not ready week one, as we've seen the Cowboys kind of be braced themselves once, then it makes a whole lot of sense to have James Washington on your roster for that. So I would say it's more likely than not that he's part of things. Now, as for TJ Vasher and some of these other names, Vasher missed all of last season. He had an injury, I believe it was his knee, back from college, and so it was kind of a redshirt year. So he's basically like an undrafted rookie, ostensibly. And frankly, I missed. So I was on my honeymoon, and I usually am not one to miss practice, but I'm also. I'm not. tomorrow I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna be 75 years old, and I'd be kicking myself if I didn't go on my honeymoon so I could watch those 2 OTA practices.
Right.
And so
we forgive you.
First OTA practice. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. So the first OTA practice, and then the mini camp practice that I saw, he wasn't someone who had a ton of opportunities in terms of like a lot of balls thrown at him or anything. Simi Fehoko was a bit more active when I came back from my break, and that's during that mini camp practice. And so I think let's just wait and see. It sounds like he did some things, but even if I was there, I would still tell you, it's great to stand out during OTAs. It's even better to stand out in training camp when there are pads on, or in the preseason when the competition is especially live, or when there's joint practices going on. The Cowboys have 3 of them, 2 against the Chargers and first against the Broncos. So there's a lot of opportunities left for a guy like TJ Basher and others, Brandon Smith, Drummond. I mean, you kind of go down the list of these guys who are young, be it a young emerging player or perhaps an external acquisition to come, be it, a veteran who's available now or someone who might be available via trade as roster cutdowns loom, or as, the 53-man roster cutdown happens, then all these players, hundreds of players around the league fall into waivers. The Cowboys, I'll leave Stephen Jones to tell you that roster building is a 365-day thing. But it's true as relates to the wide receiver position, where they don't need to be week 1 ready right now. But player development, competition, all of that, wide receiver as well as linebacker, it's going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, Gehlken.
Now, I just want to finish.
Go ahead.
My bad, Lord.
I
just want to finish off the linebacker.
Go ahead.
I was just going to finish off the linebacker, and you go ahead and keep it. But just off the linebacker position, what I wanted to ask was, I know they filled a spot with Malik Jefferson. I was excited about that from the University of Texas. I'm a Texas guy, so I was excited to see about that. But we still don't know about Jabril Cox. You still LVE had 17 games last year, but you still worry about that injury bug with him, and we know Gifford is more like a backup now. Is there any real talk? We hear about it in the air, and there might be some talks, but is Anthony Barr, I've been speaking about him since December. I think he'd be a great addition on the veteran side. Is there any real bite to this? Is something like that can really happen? Because even though you added a Malik Jefferson, I believe if you add him, that really solidifies how you feel of Barr as depth at your linebacker position.
Yeah, the 2 sides have spoken, but finances are obviously an important part of that equation, and thus far they haven't been able to close that gap. So, Anthony Barr right now is a free agent, and clearly he doesn't feel especially pressed to make any sort of decision immediately. As camp gets closer, or as camps get underway, as injuries happen, those are all variables that could accelerate his decision, and or not just his decision, but perhaps those offers that didn't quite intrigue him suddenly become more intriguing with the increase in that offer. So he's comfortable just waiting, and so we're gonna have to wait with him. But the fact that the Cowboys have spoken to him at length in terms of negotiations, I think, is indicative of they look at their linebacker position and see some room for upgrade. I think the one thing to remember when you look at the Cowboys linebacker room, and maybe how perhaps underwhelming the depth could be in some respects, and depends on what kind of eye you could be optimistic if you wanted to be, but ultimately maybe it could be stronger. The fact is that Dan Quinn relies on his safeties a lot, Jaron Kearse namely, to be in the box. And he asks a lot of that. And you look at the way that the Cowboys, do their nickel and dime sub packages. They're entirely comfortable with, if Micah Parsons is one nickel linebacker, having Jaron there right next to him. We saw that a lot last year. So I think the importance of Kearse, it really helps mitigate any concerns you might have, or at least a little bit at the linebacker position because of his versatility.
Appreciate you.
No doubt. That was some good stuff right there. Big Game James. Good questions for Gehlken. Are there any news about Anthony Barr's knees or health concern? Because I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat talking about that. And if so, I think the Cowboys can go the route like they did with was it Gerald McCoy? They had like conditions within the contract language to alleviate that. Have you heard of anything with Anthony Barr's health?
I have not, although it would be customary for a team to get one medical information remotely, but also, having a guy in for a physical before any contract was finalized. And so, I think if the numbers were right, you would probably have Anthony Barr come in for a physical, and then once that physical, whichever direction that went, then that would be the final, button to check or box to check. For that contract becoming final. So I don't know if I couldn't speak specifically to the medical situation, but given how the Cowboys are, it's been more than a month of them. It's been more than a month since they were talking contract with them. They must have felt pretty good about where he is physically more than a month ago to kind of go into talks as deeply as they did. But it's fair to watch, no doubt, over the course of this process until he signs with a team.
Most certainly. I heard you on 105.3 The Fan talking to Broadus about Kellen Moore's experience. It's not the aspect that he's not a good offensive coordinator, but you was hitting the angle of experience. Can you, I guess, echo that over here? Because a lot of people look at Kellen Moore solely as a guy that can't coach. Can you enlighten the people over here about Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, and as I talk, if anyone wants to look up how old he is, I'm drawing a blank and I should know it offhand, but just to make the point of just
he's
how
33.
young of a guy he is. 33 years old. So we're talking about a 33-year-old offensive coordinator. He's probably still one of the youngest offensive coordinators, or one of, if not the youngest offensive coordinator in the NFL, despite being out a few seasons on the job. So just naturally, we, as I said with Broadus, when you're a young player, we talk about CeeDee Lamb and his development and, the room that he has to grow. We could talk about Trayvon Diggs and the room that he has to grow. These are, when you're young at your profession, it's like the book Outliers, where you need to get your 10,000 hours on task before you can be an expert. Kellen Moore, extremely cerebral as a quarterback. He's been around football, certainly for those 10,000 hours. But when you're talking about scheming up, designing, all those things that go into being a play caller and play designer and all that, it takes time. It takes hours on task. I covered with the Chargers. On Mike McCoy's staff, he had Frank Reich, and Frank got fired, and Frank ended up being a Super Bowl winning coordinator, became an NFL head coach, and it just some guys just kind of take time, which isn't to say that Kellen Moore has been some sort of total letdown or anything like that. I mean, I think there's been a lot of success under Kellen Moore's watch, a lot of creativity, a lot of unscouted looks in terms of presentation that he gives defenses that makes him a challenge each and every week. I don't think defenses have a whole lot of time preparing for a Kellen Moore offense, but in terms of the particulars, and I think it's not just Kellen Moore, it's the entire staff, starting with Mike McCarthy on the way down. But, the details of the passing game in terms of execution were not where they needed to be last year, period. And I think if anyone had any questions about it, they saw it in January against the 49ers, against a really suspect secondary. They cannot take advantage of it. And it's not just one person. It's not just Kellen Moore. Yes, he could have done things differently, but it's not just him. It's not just Dak Prescott. Yes, he could have done things differently with his footwork, his decision-making, but it's not just him. It's what the offseason is about. You have that experience, you process it, you learn from it, and then you have months, and fortunately for the Cowboys, months of a healthy Dak Prescott to really scrutinize, learn from it, and then really build a better base because of it for the upcoming year. And that's kind of where the Cowboys are, and they hope to build off of that entering training camp.
So with that being said, is that a lose-lose factor for Mike McCarthy to sit back and watch the young phenom Kellen Moore go through the growing pains and saying, I can't put the fire out for you. You got to figure out yourself. Because I think he said that in the interview. If he installed the plays, he got to call the plays. And I'm just going to sit back with the clipboard and not intervene and watch him burn down the kitchen, because that's what I see. That's what I see out of this whole situation. He's not in a win-win deal.
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting point. It's an interesting conversation because Mike McCarthy has a style about him, and I think it's drawn criticism in the past. Drew some criticism in Green Bay, where he really delegates. You know, I covered John Gruden with the Raiders before things fell apart, and you know, talk about hands-on. I mean, and granted, he was, even though he wasn't the offensive coordinator in title, he was a play caller, and he was really in the trenches with the quarterback. And again, it's to McCarthy's point, if you call it, you know, you install it. And so it's not an apples to apples comparison, but nonetheless, you know, I've seen head coaches be extremely hands-on in the offense. And so McCarthy chooses not to do that. You know, he kind of just steps back and doesn't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen, which I think, you know, requires some discipline, because you don't want that. You don't want to muddle the message, and you want to have it kind of come through Kellen Moore. But there's probably a balance to that where, you know, you can probably help in some areas a little more actively with the preparation. And I think it really is Kellen Moore's show. Now, does Mike McCarthy have input? Yes, I'm not saying he doesn't, but to the level at which he provides that input, I think is different than some other places in the league.
No doubt, that's a good response.
All right, Mr. Gehlken. All right. Now, I got to go to a little bit of controversy. Just a little bit. Let's
do it.
Because, see,
I'm ready for that.
I told you can't. Listen, I told y'all he came by hot on his Twitter. So he said Cowboys tight end Dalton Schultz does not get enough credit for his blocking. Room to improve, no doubt. So I see you measuring the Kool-Aid. But there's plenty of positive on tape, particularly for someone with 141 catches, and you lay out the stats over the last 2 years. Blocking not the reason he's still on a franchise tag today. So I'm going to go ahead and let your clip roll as you make your case for Dalton Schultz and his blocking.
So each time I've reported about Dalton Schultz this offseason as it relates to the franchise tag and negotiations with the Cowboys and all that, I can't help but notice this building narrative of, well, he's a horrible blocker. Guy can't block. The only place he blocks is on Twitter, which sounds like he really blocks a lot of people on Twitter, which I think he must really enjoy. I haven't asked him about that
He
yet.
does block a lot on Twitter.
I can't block. I'll show you I can block. I'm blocking on Twitter. I'm pretty sure that's what his line of thinking is. He's having fun with that. But, I mean, you look back at week one, you know, there was a tight end out in space, and if this block gets made, the Cowboys are 1-0, and they beat the defending Super Bowl champions in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium, the place where they won the Super Bowl just months earlier. Mm-hmm. And that tight end couldn't make a block in space against a safety that just got elevated from the practice squad a day or two earlier for that game. That tight end was not Dalton Schultz. That was Blake Jarwin. Yeah. And if you really wanted to take a look at what a tight end that can't block or really struggles to block, trying to be polite, watch Blake Jarwin's tape, and then watch Schultz and tell me that the two are the same. I'm not saying that Dalton Schultz is George Kittle. I'm not saying that, he's this, lights out, blocker, but he's competitive and he gets a lot done, and he's high effort, and you see him sealing, critical plays. There's a play against Carolina, the Cowboys' longest run of the season. Schultz helped seal the lane. You can find the examples, and you have to at least, don't be unreasonable about this guy's blocking. I mean, yes, he can get better. I mean, against Chandler Jones in Week 17, Chandler Jones has like 5 or 6 inches in terms of arm length on him. Part of the reason I think people are really underwhelmed with Dalton Schultz, this whole situation, is that he's not someone who's going to wow you with his physical traits. He's not long levered at all. His speed, any of these physical measurables that are the ones that we tout. He's not anyone that you would say, oh, this is a guy who deserves to be franchise tagged. But he has, over the past 2 seasons, earned a contract. Yeah. And he's not asking to be paid like George Kittle. He's not asking to be paid like Travis Kelce. He's asking to get paid a little bit above David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. And you look at Njoku's stats and blocking, and convince me that Schultz has not earned a contract better than that. And I think the Cowboys will say, well, Njoku shouldn't have been paid that, and the Browns made a mistake, and there's the issue in contract negotiations. If you want to say that's the floor, well, we think that floor was mistakenly installed, and so we don't want to acknowledge that floor. It creates some complication with discussions. But again, to kind of get back to the point, Dalton Schultz, is he the greatest blocking tight end in the NFL? No, and he wouldn't tell you that. But if you're going to really take a look at tight ends, because tight ends are not offensive linemen, right. What a tight end is going to give you at that weight, while also giving you that receiving production, I think he's better than people are giving him credit for. And so I understood, believe me, carving out 4 hours literally on my birthday to make a Dalton Schultz blocking highlight tape is not my idea of like, oh, this is going to go over really well. Like I understood what I was getting into. Yep. But to me, my job is to obviously do research and understand what the facts are. And the fact is that Schultz is a better blocker than people are willing to give him credit for. Again, just as I said there, room to improve, absolutely. He's working on increasing his play strength, all that. I think in recognition of that, but he's not what people are making him out to be. So let's have a little nuance to the conversation as it relates to Dalton Schultz's blocking. And I think a little nuance in general as it relates to different arguments in our society is always a good thing, where it doesn't have to be so black and white.
Gehlken, let me ask you this. Wait.
Wait.
Oh, yeah, give him that. Yeah.
Wait, because I got to jump in real quick, Law, because I know you get, because I also promised them it's going to be short. I don't want to go too long on them. All right, check this.
We're good.
I can already feel the crowd doing this. But this is the deal. Everybody, he right, because he did the work on film, right?
Yeah, prove it with the film. Yeah.
I'm going to do my homework even more on Dalton Schultz, because we all know, Law Big, we all know that narratives are sometimes created that are not true according to film, So at least he did the film work. So what you say, Law? Don't shake him with the butter knife, because he's done the work. Don't just say he's a Kool-Aid drinker to Dalton Schultz, because he's done the work. You know what I mean? And he showed it and put it on his Twitter. So when they do that, all we got to do is then do our homework at the same time. So I respect the work, and I respect you going on the edge of what's different and what's not popular. What was you going to say, Lau, before we let him go?
The open market, that's what I wanted the Cowboys to see with Dalton Schultz. And in your opinion, after reviewing his film, do you think a team would pay him north of Dallas Goedert on the open market, and the Cowboys could have set back and then match it from there? Because you said that he's not really asking for a lot. Well, at this point, it got to be north of Dallas Goedert, because he played and performed better than him these last 2 seasons collectively. And I kind of look at it like, of course, David Njoku's money was just silly, but it got to be north of that. And only the 2 other players that had a better salary than that was Mark Andrews as well as Travis Kelce. So I have to look at it that he was looking to reset the market. Yes or no?
Well, so Dalton Schultz was not expecting to get paid north of Dallas Goedert. He wasn't. I think between him and Njoku would have been a range that would have gotten the deal done. Had the Cowboys not franchise tagged Dalton Schultz, right now he's going to be playing under a $10.93 million franchise tag.
Right.
Had they not tagged him and he became an unrestricted free agent in March, he gets easily north of $12 million. Easily. Floor. Probably very well could have been 13 plus. And so there's no doubt that he's cheaper than market value, which is part of the reason if you're the Cowboys, it made sense to keep him under the franchise tag. They didn't feel especially incentivized. You look at all the money they're tied up at quarterback, at running back, on offensive line. You got CeeDee Lamb not too far away in the horizon. You got Trayvon Diggs deal not too far on the horizon, and Micah Parsons deserves every penny or dollar Benjamin that is coming his way. And so when you're talking about a tight end and you can have for another year and kind of let the same play out, I think it made a whole lot of business sense for the Cowboys not to do the sort of deal that the market right now commands. I think when you look at the other tight end deals, you have to keep in mind that the salary cap is increasing. And so, if one guy gets, $15 or $14 million in 2021, well, that amount means a little bit different in 2022. Or likewise, the New England Patriots tight ends, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, they're at $12.5 million per year. Those deals were back in March of 2021. And so each of these deals, they raise the bar for the next guy. And we also have to kind of weigh in salary cap with who the player is. And often the numbers look a little bit wonky because, this player is getting paid this much when he's clearly not at the level of this guy, but it's all based on the percentage of a salary cap that's increasing.
No doubt.
Big, did you have one more thing, my brother?
Yeah, I just want to ask one last question for you, Michael. It's on the defensive side again. I'm a defensive guy. Sorry, that's what I'd like to talk about.
Let's do it.
But it's going to really go with the right end position and Sam Williams. Obviously, you see that they got Dante Fowler in, and then Dorrance Armstrong Jr. was re-signed to his deal, and then Sam Williams was drafted. Two questions. What's the reasonable plan for Sam Williams this season? And, do you think that Dante Fowler is going to have a role because he played a little bit of linebacker last year at Atlanta? What's kind of, if he's on this roster, what's kind of the plan for Dante Fowler? Are they going to stand him up, kind of throw him with Dorrance Armstrong, you're attacking the line of scrimmage? Kind of maybe, could you give maybe some insight on that if you do?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see that position come together in the post-Ray world in which we live. The Dante Fowler signing, we'll see what he can bring the Cowboys, but just from a pure financial standpoint, he'll probably give you, according to the Pro Football Focus measure of pressures, he'll probably give you 40 plus pressures this season if he's healthy. And at the value of what or at the price tag of what the Cowboys are paying him, it's a pretty cheap 40 pressure player. Pair him with Dorrance Armstrong, who has more of that prototypical length that Dan Quinn covets. I think that's a pretty solid start for that position. Sam Williams Jr. is blindingly fast. I mean, his speed is his greatest asset. You also have to acknowledge that he's still fairly raw. Talk about those 10,000 hours. He's well short of that. He's pretty new to football. And so the Cowboys are really excited about that. They would rather have a player closer to his floor when they get their hands on him than a player who's closer to his ceiling. And so, this is a guy that Dan Quinn has been very excited to coach and develop. And so Adam Dirt as well, they're really putting in the extra work, the extra time before practice, after practice, in the meeting room, work on his hand usage, his hand placement, his leverage, everything that kind of goes into being a dominant pass rusher in this league. Is it going to happen as a rookie? Probably not. I think we should all be realistic and appreciate a player's developmental journey. But I think just by nature of his speed, if you're to get him on the field in some more obvious pass rush situations, he can just naturally be disruptive. And so we'll see over the course of training camp. And the Cowboys aren't going to want to show too much in terms of their actual plan during the preseason. As part of the beauty of having joint practices is they can just, in a controlled environment, give guys, the higher value guys a lot of reps then, and then kind of dial back during the preseason when the injury rate statistically is higher. We'll see the exact plan over the course of time, but my imagination would point to a real pass situation usage for Sam Williams to start, and then over the course of the year, as he gets his feet under him a little bit and kind of prove to the coaching staff, perhaps more can be put on his plate.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Mr. Gehlken, our last question is obviously dealing with training camp. Everybody's excited about training camp. And on your Twitter, you said Cowboys are in a countdown mode. 1 week from today, they travel to Oxnard, California for training camp. So just what's your general thoughts as you preparing to go covering for the Dallas Morning News and preparing us for training camp? What's your thoughts in general?
It's funny because there's always my thoughts, frankly, are always like when the schedule comes out, in April and now it's May. I already know, we all know who the Cowboys are playing. We know their opponents. We learn that once the season ends. And so my thoughts are always, okay, well, am I going to be home for Christmas? Am I going to be home for, different things? When's the bye week? Talk to my wife about where we could go for that or how we want to spend it. And so right now, my thoughts before training camp is like, all right, I got to take care of my dog. I got to do. And so right now, certain things around the house before I leave and like all of that. And so that's my most honest answer to that question is how little actually has to do with the team, because I know that I know the team. Even though there's been no practice for by the time they get to Oxnard 6 weeks, you still can't help but think about different aspects of the roster, different competitions. How's Michael Gallup's rehab progressing, or taking a better look at the salary cap and where the team stands in certain contracts. Could there be certain players who they extend before then? You can't help but think about it a little bit, but ultimately nothing's really going to change from mid-June to when they step on the field on 27th for the first time in practice. There just isn't a whole lot of developments, which is a good thing. So you don't want developments during this quiet period. It's supposed to stay quiet. So I think I'm just kind of mentally, getting away a little bit as